Whispers in the Void. The galactic Concordat spanned 17 star systems, 6 sentient species, and over 12,000 years of recorded history. Throughout this vast expanse of time and space, one peculiar myth persisted across all member species, the legend of humans. Captain Thrix of the exploration vessel Luminous Dawn yawned, her 4 mandibles clicking together as she stretched her exoskeleton. 20 cycles of deep space exploration had hardened her against the loneliness of the void, but this assignment to the forbidden sectors had tested even her resolve. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from Quadrant 7, her sensor officer, a young Kelphid named Zorn, reported. "Unusual how?" Thrix asked, her compound eyes focusing on the holographic display. I've never seen anything like it. The signature suggests advanced fusion technology, but the configuration is unlike anything in our database." Thrix felt her carapace tighten. These forbidden sectors had been off-limits for thousands of years, ever since the time of shadows when, according to legend, the Concordat had faced its greatest threat, humans. "Maintain distance but continue scanning," she ordered. The myths said humans were unpredictable, dangerous creatures that evolved on a death world. They were supposedly short-lived but reproduced at alarming rates. Their technology was crude but effective, and they possessed an innate aggression that made them unstoppable in warfare. Every child in the Concordat grew up with stories of how the ancient alliance had barely survived the human onslaught before finally driving them to extinction. At least that was the official history. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced, his voice trembling. "From where?" From the energy signature." "Impossible. No one should be out here." "Put it through." The bridge went silent as a voice filled the chamber. It wasn't in any Concordat language. It was something else, something ancient and forgotten. But the ship's translation matrix was working on it. "Greetings, unknown vessel. This is Outpost Theta of the Human Federation. You have entered restricted space. Please identify yourself." The entire bridge crew froze. Humans, not extinct, not mythical. Real. Thrix made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Cut transmission. Prepare for emergency jump to Concordat space." "Captain," Zorn questioned, "the High Council needs to know." "Immediately." High Counselor Dravik received the report with skepticism bordering on contempt. His luminescent tendrils flared with agitation as he read Captain Thrix's findings. "Humans. You expect the Council to believe you encountered humans." His voice resonated through the chamber. "Captain, do you realize the implications of such a claim?" Thrix stood firm despite her exhaustion. The emergency jump had drained the ship's resources and her own energy reserves. "I am aware, High Counselor. I would not bring this to your attention if I were not certain." "Humans are myths, Captain. Stories to frighten younglings. Next, you'll tell me you've seen the Shadow Eaters or the Crystal Giants." "I have the recordings, Counselor. The language patterns match the ancient archives. The technology signatures are consistent with what little we know of human engineering. They are out there, and they know we found them." The other council members murmured among themselves. Dravik's tendrils pulsed with annoyance. Even if, and this is an astronomical if, humans still exist, they would be primitive, isolated, and of no concern to the Concordat. "With respect, Counselor, the outpost I encountered was advanced. More advanced than anything I've seen in Concordat space." Dravik's expression hardened. "Your report will be filed, Captain. You and your crew are ordered to speak of this to no one." Dismissed. As Thrix left the chamber, she knew the Council's dismissal wouldn't be the end of it. If humans truly existed and possessed the technology she'd witnessed, the comfortable certainties of Concordat existence were about to shatter. Over the following weeks, reports began filtering in from the outer systems. Strange ships appearing at the edges of sensor range. Unexplained communication bursts containing unknown encryption. Rumors of encounters with Bictal beings who called themselves human. The High Council could no longer ignore the mounting evidence. The myths speak of human aggression. Councillor Vrina of the Sathar said during an emergency session, "If they have survived and advanced, they may seek revenge for whatever happened during the time of shadows." "We don't even know what happened," countered Councillor Tlem. "The records from that era are fragmented at best, deliberately erased at worst." Dravik had grown increasingly agitated as more reports confirmed Thrix's initial findings. Whether the humans seek revenge or not is irrelevant. Their existence threatens the stability of the Concordat. The common people believe humans are monsters from children's stories. If they learn humans are real, there would be panic. Vrina finished. "Precisely," Dravik said. "We must contain this situation, increase patrols along the forbidden sectors. Any vessel encountered is to be scanned, and, if necessary, detained for questioning." "And if we encounter humans directly?" asked Tlem. Dravik's tendrils darkened to a deep purple. "Then we must ensure the myths remain myths. The Concordat has prospered for millennia in the absence of humanity. We cannot allow their return to destabilize everything we've built." The Council voted unanimously to implement Dravik's directives. Military vessels were dispatched to the borders. Research teams began combing through ancient archives for any information on human physiology, psychology, and technology that might help in the event of confrontation. But they were too late. On the 70th cycle since Captain Thrix's report, every communication system throughout Concordat space received the same message, broadcast simultaneously in all 17 member languages. "To the Galactic Concordat, you have hidden the truth for too long. You have built your civilization on lies. We never disappeared. We never died out. We remember what you did, and we are coming to set the record straight. Prepare for the arrival of the Human Federation fleet." The myths were real, and they were coming home. First contact. Admiral Helena Chen watched the stars through the viewport of the USS Righteous Memories Bridge. After 3 decades in the Federation fleet, she still found the void beautiful, endless possibility stretching into infinity. Today, however, her thoughts weren't on beauty but on justice. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Jackson said from his station. "The Concordat has gone into full alert status. Their defense grid is active." Chen nodded. "As expected, open a channel to the fleet." The communications officer confirmed with a nod. "This is Admiral Chen. Today we reclaim our place in the galaxy and confront those who try to erase us from history. Remember your training. Remember the protocols. And most importantly, remember why we're here. We seek justice, not vengeance." Chen out. She turned to her first officer. "Signal the diplomacy vessel to move forward." The USS Olive Branch, a sleek vessel designed specifically for first contact scenarios, broke formation and advanced toward Concordat space. Its name was intentionally ironic, an olive branch carried by those who had been betrayed. Let's see if they remember how to talk, or if 12,000 years has made them forget that option, Chen said, settling into her command chair. On Concordat Prime, the ancestral home of the founding species and seat of the High Council, panic had given way to grim determination. The military mobilization was the largest in recorded history. High Councillor Dravik stood before the emergency assembly of all 17 system representatives. His tendrils were pulled tight against his body, a sign of extreme stress among his kind. "The human fleet has entered the outer defensive perimeter," he announced. "Our estimates put their numbers at just over 200 vessels of various classes." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. 200, one representative asked. "That's all. Our combined fleet's number in the thousands." Dravik's tendrils trembled. 200 vessels of unknown capability. Do not underestimate them. The myths exist for a reason. "What do they want?" asked the Kelphi representative. "Have they made demands?" "One of their ships has broken formation and is approaching under minimal power. They're requesting direct communication with this body." The assembly erupted in debate. Some called for immediate attack. Others demanded negotiation. Still others suggested surrender, citing the ancient warnings about human warfare. Dravik raised his appendages for silence. We will hear them, if only to buy time for our fleets to assemble. The massive display at the center of the chamber activated, and for the first time in 12 millennia, the leaders of the Concordat looked upon a human face. Admiral Chen stared back at them, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp and assessing. Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Concordat. I am Admiral Helena Chen of the Human Federation. We come seeking truth and reconciliation. Dravik stepped forward. Truth. You invade our space with a war fleet and speak of truth. We haven't fired a single shot despite your vessels targeting our ships, Chen replied calmly. As for invasion, this was our space long before it was yours. Preposterous, another counselor interjected. The Concordat has existed for over 12,000 years. Yes, Chen nodded. Approximately the same amount of time since your ancestors attempted to eradicate humanity from the galaxy. Shocked silence fell over the assembly. Your histories paint us as monsters, Chen continued. As a threat that was rightfully extinguished. But we survived. We rebuilt. And we remembered. Dravik's composure wavered slightly. If you seek revenge. If we sought revenge, Chen interrupted, we wouldn't be talking. Your ancestors didn't offer conversation when they bombarded Earth, when they released engineered plagues on our colonies. This is absurd, Dravik countered. Our histories speak of a defensive action against human aggression. History is written by the victors, Chen said. Or in this case, by those who believe they were victors. We're here to correct the record. As the diplomatic exchange continued, Commander Jackson approached Admiral Chen in her private chamber aboard the Righteous Memory. Admiral, Concordat vessels are moving into attack positions. They're trying to surround us while their leadership keeps you talking. Chen nodded, unsurprised. Activate Protocol Lighthouse. Throughout the human fleet, specialized transmitters activated, broadcasting directly to every communication device in Concordat space. The truth began to flow. Unaltered historical records, preserved for millennia, showing the unprovoked attack on human colonies. The systematic attempt to eradicate a species that the ancient Concordat had deemed too unpredictable to exist in their vision of a controlled, ordered galaxy. Aboard Concordat vessels, and on planets throughout the 17 systems, beings of all species watched in horror as their carefully constructed history collapsed. The humans hadn't been monsters. They had been victims. Fleet Commander, Dravik's voice shook as he addressed his military leader. Stand down. I repeat, stand down. High Counselor, the human vessels are holding position but maintain defensive stances. What do you wish us to do? Dravik looked at the evidence flooding every screen in Concordat space. The ancient council's decision to eliminate humanity rather than risk their unpredictable influence on galactic affairs. The failed genocide, the subsequent cover-up that became mythology over millennia. Stand down, he repeated, and may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on our ancestors' souls. 3 days later, Admiral Chen stood before the full Concordat assembly. The initial shock had given way to a complex mixture of shame, disbelief, and anger, the latter directed mostly at their own leadership for perpetuating lies for thousands of years. What happens now? Dravik asked, his voice hollow. Your fleet could destroy our civilization. Many would say we deserve it. Chen looked out at the assembled representatives. 12,000 years ago, your ancestors decided humans were too dangerous to exist because we didn't fit neatly into their vision of galactic order. They feared our adaptability, our creativity, our unpredictability. They feared what they couldn't control. She paused, letting her words sink in. If we destroyed you now, we would only prove them right. We didn't come for vengeance. We came for acknowledgement, for truth. And then we begin again. Humans have thrived in the darkness beyond your borders. We've built our own civilization, formed alliances with species you've never encountered. The galaxy is larger and more diverse than your 17 systems. A ripple of surprise passed through the assembly. We propose a new beginning, Chen continued, not as enemies, not even as uneasy allies, but as two civilizations acknowledging a painful past and looking toward a different future. As the assembly debated her words, Chen received a private communication from Earth. The Federation Council had reviewed the Concordat's response and approved the next phase. It was time to show the Concordat exactly what humanity had become during their millennia of exile. The truth unveiled. The viewing dome atop the High Council spire offered a panoramic view of the capital city below and the stars above. It was here that Admiral Chen chose to meet with Dravik and the representatives of the 17 systems for what she had cryptically called a demonstration of human capabilities. "Your fleet is impressive, Admiral," Dravik said, as they stood at the center of the dome, surrounded by stars. "But it cannot match our combined forces in numbers." Chen smiled slightly. "Numbers are irrelevant when facing a technological gap. But that's not what I'm here to demonstrate." She nodded to Commander Jackson, who activated a small device. The stars above them seemed to shift, and suddenly the dome was filled with holographic displays showing locations throughout Concordat space. "These are live feeds," Chen explained. "Military installations, governmental facilities, power generation stations, shipyards, all the vital infrastructure of your 17 systems." The representatives looked on in growing alarm. "How did you obtain these images?" one demanded. "Our security is based on technology that has remained largely unchanged for thousands of years," Chen finished for him, "while humanity was forced to innovate constantly to survive." With another nod from Chen, Jackson changed the display. Now they were looking at what appeared to be small, metallic objects attached to various structures in the previous images. "Quantum entanglement devices," Chen explained, "placed throughout your territory over the last century by unmanned stealth probes. At my command, they could disable every piece of vital infrastructure simultaneously without causing a single casualty." Dravik's tendrils went completely rigid. "You've already infiltrated our systems. This diplomatic exchange is genuine," Chen interrupted. "If we wanted to conquer the Concordat, we could have done so decades ago. We didn't come to replace one oppression with another." She gestured, and the display changed again, showing vast regions of space beyond Concordat borders, regions filled with stars, planets, and evidence of civilizations the Concordat had never encountered. "While you've been stagnating, comfortable in your believed superiority, we've been exploring, learning, growing." The human sphere of influence now spans over 40 star systems. We've formed alliances with 12 sentient species, most of whom the Concordat has never encountered. The revelation landed like a physical blow. The representatives had believed their Concordat represented the height of galactic civilization. The idea that a supposedly extinct species had not only survived, but thrived beyond their knowledge was almost incomprehensible. "Then why reveal yourselves now?" asked the Kelthi representative. "Why not continue your separate development?" Chen's expression grew solemn. "Because the galaxy faces a threat greater than either of our civilizations can handle alone." The holographic display shifted again, showing strange vessels of organic appearance moving through the void. Their designs were unlike anything the Concordat had ever seen, not constructed but grown, pulsing with an alien energy that seemed fundamentally wrong. "The void bloom," Chen explained, "a collective consciousness that consumes all in its path. We encountered them 3 years ago on the far edge of human space. They've already consumed 2 of our colony worlds despite our best defensive efforts." Dravik studied the images with growing horror. "And they're coming this way?" "Yes. Based on their trajectory, they'll reach Concordat space within 5 years. Alone, neither of us can stop them. Together, we might have a chance." The revelation changed everything. The initial fear and resentment toward the human fleet transformed into cautious cooperation. Joint military exercises began. Human technology was shared, not freely, but enough to begin upgrading Concordat defenses. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the righteous memory, watching as human and Concordat vessels maneuvered together in coordinated formations. Beside her stood Thrix, the Concordat captain whose discovery had set these events in motion. "Your people adapt quickly," Thrix observed. "Our military instructors say your pilots learn in days what takes our pilots months." Chen nodded. "It's what saved us 12,000 years ago. It's what will save us all now." Thrix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The myths about humans, they weren't entirely wrong. "You are dangerous. All sentient life is dangerous when threatened," Chen replied. "The difference is in whether that danger is controlled and directed or allowed to run wild. The ancient council feared your unpredictability. They believed you could not be controlled or directed." Chen turned to face the insectoid captain. "They were right. We can't be controlled, not by others. But we can control ourselves. We can direct our own potential. That's the truth your ancestors couldn't accept." Thrix considered this. "And now, what happens between our peoples when the Void Bloom is defeated?" "If," Chen corrected gently, "if they're defeated. And after that, we do what sentient beings have always done. We learn from each other. We trade. We argue. We cooperate when necessary and compete when beneficial. We acknowledge our differences instead of fearing them." The massive view screen showed the combined fleet moving in perfect synchronization. Concordat vessels with their elegant, symmetrical designs alongside the more angular, functional human ships. Different approaches to the same challenges, now working in harmony. "The myths called you monsters," Thrix said quietly. "But perhaps the true monstrosity was in those who couldn't accept difference." Chen smiled sadly. "That's the real battle, isn't it? Not against external threats, but against our own fear of the unknown. Your ancestors lost that battle. We're offering your generation another chance to win it." As the exercise concluded, signals came in from across the integrated fleet, success metrics that exceeded all projections. Human adaptability combined with Concordat precision was proving to be a formidable combination. On worlds throughout both civilizations, the truth was being taught for the first time. Not the myths, not the propaganda, but the complicated, messy truth of two peoples whose first encounter had ended in tragedy, and whose second chance had come 12 millennia later. The stars looked the same as they always had from the bridge of the righteous memory, but Admiral Chen knew the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Humanity had emerged from the shadows not as conquerors, not as vengeful ghosts, but as what they had always been: explorers, innovators, survivors. "They believed humans were fiction," Thrix said, echoing the phrase that had spread throughout Concordat space, "until your fleet sailed into our territory." "And now?" Chen asked. Thrix's compound eyes reflected the stars beyond the viewport. "Now we believe in something else, something the myths never mentioned." "What's that?" "Redemption," Thrix replied, "for both our peoples." As the combined fleet returned to formation, a new chapter in galactic history began, written not by victors or vanquished, but by those who had found the courage to face the truth and move beyond it. The myths were dead. Reality, with all its complexity and promise, had taken their place.